In Hong Kong, there has been multiple violent protests since they are unhappy with the way China has limited the democracy of its government. They are also mad about the reoccurring police brutality throughout these protests. Leaders such as Joshua Wong and Agnes Chow are some pro-democracy politicians who have gotten arrested for being so. Andy Chan was the leader of a pro-independence party which got banned as well and got arrested around early 2019. The problem is that when the UK returned Hong Kong to China, they proposed that although they were going to be one single country, they were going to be run by two different systems. This agreement is going to finish in 2047, but China has started to rule out the agreement and started to abuse their power against Hong Kong, which is one of the reasons why Hong Kong has started to protest. Carrie Lam proposed that they would remove the extradition bill in an attempt to reduce the protests, but the Chinese government rejected Lam's proposal.
Sovereignty is a key IB concept being addressed in this issue. The protests are about Hong Kong's control over territory and its ability to govern itself. Liberty is also another IB concept being addressed. The 2019 Hong Kong extradition bill deals with having freedom and autonomy. Tourism to Hong Kong has fallen by 40%, according to Hong Kong Financial Secretary Paul Chan. In August, protesters shut down the airport for several days. Due to this, hundreds of flights had to be cancelled. Paul Chan had made a comment saying that this severely damaged Hong Kong's international image as a safe city for trade, aviation, and finance. Occupancy rates in August fell by more than half, and house prices sank as much as 70%. A total of 1,344 protest-related arrests have occurred. Hong Kong property prices have risen over 300% since 2003, as reported by independent economist Andy Xi. And he has also gone to say that Hong Kong's tycoons are the problem underlining recent arrests. The 2019 Hong Kong extradition bill, proposed by Hong Kong's government in February, covers mainland China and other jurisdictions that don't have an extradition agreement with Hong Kong. Opponents are concerned that it could open the door for anyone, including political dissidents or civil rights activists. The Chinese military recently has been carrying out its annual military rotation in Hong Kong. The Chinese military has about 6,000 to 10,000 soldiers in Hong Kong at any given time. Now you may be wondering, who are the principal actors and stakeholders? Well, on one side you have the protesters with a non-centralized authority against the Hong Kong government, the Chinese government, and triad groups. The triad groups are one of the many branches of Chinese crime syndicates based in China, Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. U.S. government officials, the UK, and even Germany have made comments on this issue. Other political issues have been manifesting themselves in this case. The country is becoming more and more divided between the two sides, as seen in the recent incident where there has been a clash between protesters and counter-protesters in a mall. Censorship has also been on the rise, as seen with activists in mainland China being threatened or detained for posting messages of support or retweeting news stories based on the Hong Kong protest. And also China's legitimacy is being hurt by these protests because they're being seen as anti-Hong Kong, and many are fearing that this will be a repeat of the Tiananmen Square incident.
China and Hong Kong have two different systems. Hong Kong's democracy will end in the year 2047, but China wants to end it now because they want one system. They want to be independent and not lose their land. Impacts will be pushing tourists to other destinations, retail sales increasing, businesses being hammered by protests. Also, millennials will be getting their civil liberties taken away if Hong Kong's system is seized. Hong Kong visitors and citizens will be under China's control. Responses have been hundreds of thousands of Hong Kong protests have been protesting for 13 weeks. It has been going on since March 31st. They occupied Hong Kong's international airport, canceling all ingoing and outgoing flights. Beijing State's Council Office for Hong Kong and Macau Affairs said shortly after the occupation began that it detected signs of terrorism in the protests and warned the situation had reached a critical juncture. Hong Kong protesters even created their own national anthem. Yang Guang, a spokesperson for the State Council Office for Hong Kong and Macau Affairs, acknowledged the protests. He called them evil and criminal since then Chinese state media have been covering Hong Kong's turmoil daily with increasingly hostile rhetoric. Police even fired tear gas and rubber bullets into large crowds. Black-clad protesters occupied the city's normally bustling international airport on Monday to vent their anger at the brutality. Yet in response to demands for police inquiry, Beijing has repeatedly commended Hong Kong's police force for upholding law and order. Interpretations of the issue have been that protesters are actively involved in the situation for them. They will interpret the situation in favor of their cause. And on the other hand, Chinese government wants them to just stop protesting. Considerations that influence how the issue will be playing out is the protests, the treatment of protesters, and the authority being violent.
You can use what we learned in this course to analyze this case and political issue by analyzing power and human rights. The people protesting are defending their human rights. China is using too much of their power and violating Hong Kong's sovereignty. Hong Kong doesn't feel like a part of China because they have two different systems, so they want to remain separate. A global politics theory that can help us understand the situation is power, because the people of Hong Kong are protesting against people of authority in China. Not long after becoming president in 2013, Mr. Tsai said, "We should increase China's soft power, give a good Chinese narrative, and better communicate China's message to the world." Their soft power tactics aren't working, so they're trying to turn to sharper forces to try to control the people. The New York Times says Hong Kong's hot summer of street protests has entered its 13th week, and the demonstration's intensity is only increasing, with hundreds of arrests, clouds of tear gas, and volleys of rubber bullets. With every week passing, what began as a popular protest against a proposed extradition law has hardened into a struggle for the soul of Hong Kong, dimming the potential of negotiated resolution. Other interpretations or points of views on this case that are possible are that Hong Kong could be seen as selfish since it wants to be independent and therefore threatening stability. The protesters of Hong Kong are not satisfied with the agreements being made. There doesn't seem to be any sooner potential for negotiation with the protesters because of the use of hard power and attacks in China. Our group agrees with the fact that Hong Kong is questioning the government's decisions and being actively involved. However, they should be careful not to use violence in order to not elevate the situation, making it worse. The protesters' goal is not some abstract ideal of democracy, but the memory of a life they have no intention of letting Beijing take away. As of now, the protests are still going on and the leaders refuse to make amends with the protesters.